June 10th, 1943. Aboard the USS slicing through the ink-black waves of the North Atlantic, 300 miles west of Ireland. The radio shack hums with the low growl of diesel engines vibrating through the bulkheads, the air thick with the metallic temps of sweat and ozone from overheating vacuum tubes. Petty Officer First Class Harlan Sparks Thompson hunches over his Type 285 radar console, his fingers slick on the dials, eyes straining against the green phosphor glow. The convoy 20 merchant ships laden with tanks, ammo, and desperate hope for the Allied push stretches out like ghosts in the fog-shrouded night. But the real enemy isn't the U-boats lurking below. It's the invisible one crackling in his headset. Mayday. Mayday Wolfpack. Closing on Grid Alpha 7. Request. Air support. Harlan's voice cuts off as a wall of static erupts, a screeching howl that drowns everything. He twists the frequency knob frantically, sweat beading on his brow under the dim red battle lamp. The jamming signal pulses like a predator's heartbeat. Deliberate, relentless, German direction-finding stations. Those cursed ears of the Reich. Abby looked on. Every transmission is a beacon, inviting torpedoes to the feast. You can almost feel the chill seep through the hull as the operator's pulse races, knowing one wrong hop could doom them all. In the bowels of the destroyer, the crew holds its breath. Captain Elias Ironjaw Markham paces the bridge above, his binoculars scanning the horizon where periscopes might pierce the surface. "Sparks, get me that freck clear," he barks into the intercom. Voice edged with the steel of a man who's lost ships before. Harlan switches bands, again 87 megahertz, then 92, but the interference follows like a shadow, morphing, adapting. It's not random noise. It's engineered malice from Nazi jammers ashore in occupied France, their hyperwood transmitters blanketing the ether with electronic fog. Allied radios vital for coordinating convoys against the Wolfpacks are choking. Lives hang on these fragile waves, and tonight, they're fraying. Flashback just hours earlier. The Obanen's sonar pings a submerged contact to 118, a Type IXC sub slinking in for the kill. Harlan keys the mic to alert the escort carriers, but the airwaves turn to chaos. It's like they're inside our heads. He motors to his assistant, Seaman Riley, a wide-eyed kid from Iowa who's never seen the ocean turn red. The Germans have mastered radio direction, finding our DF triangulating signals in seconds, turning every broadcast into a death sentence. Torpedoes, those sleek underwater assassins, rely on radio guidance from ships or planes, but jammed frecks mean blind shots, wasted ordnance, shattered missions. You feel the tension coiled tighter as Harlan slams his fist on the console. In the Pacific, it's the same nightmare. Japanese Zero's jamming bomber runs over Guadalcanal, turning air support into silence. On the Eastern Front, Red Army radios sputter under Luftwaffe electronic warfare, leaving tanks isolated in the snow. The Allies are bleeding from this unseen wound. Over 3,500 merchant vessels sunk by mid-1943, many because communications failed. Churchill calls it the Battle of the Airwaves, but to men like Harlan, its personal brothers lost because a signal didn't get through. Yet amid this electronic siege, a whisper of hope flickers, whispers from the labs back home, where unlikely heroes tinker with secrets. Harlan doesn't know it yet, but a glamorous face from the silver screen holds the key to breaking this stranglehold. Hedy Lamarr. That Hedy Lamarr, the Austrian-born starlet of MGM's golden age, has co-invented something revolutionary. Frequency-hopping spread spectrum, they call it. Signals that dance across bands like fireflies evading a net. Untouchable by jam. Patented just last August. It's inspired by player pianos and Hollywood ingenuity. Designed to secure torpedo guidance from eavesdroppers. But how did a bombshell actress become the architect of silent victory? As the Obanin pitches in the swells, Harlan fights the static one last time, his mind racing toward a breakthrough he can't yet see. The jamming intensifies. A U-boat periscope breaks the surface, and suddenly, the real test begins. December 1940. The war drums echo across the Atlantic, but in the candlelit living room of a Beverly Hills mansion, the air smells of gardenias and cigarette smoke. Hedy Lamarr Hedwig, Eva Maria, Kiesler Marquis. To the Patan office sits, cross-legged, on a velvet chaise. cross-legged. Her dark hair falling in perfect waves. A sketchpad balanced on her knee. Across from her, George Antheil, the avant-garde composer with wild eyes and ink-stained fingers, pounds a few experimental notes on the grand piano. They're not rehearsing lines or music. They're plotting against the invisible. You can picture it. The soft glow of table lamps catching the facets of crystal glasses. Hedy, once married to an Austrian arms manufacturer, has seen blueprints of torpedoes up close leak. Deadly things, guided by fragile radio links. She knows the nightmare. Axis forces jamming those signals, sending precious Allied weapons spiraling harmlessly into the deep. The Navy's radio-controlled torpedoes, meant to turn the tide against you, become sitting ducks when the ether fills with deliberate noise. Hedy speaks first, voice low and accented. If the guidance signal stays on one frequency, they find it. They drown Italiano, but if it jumps, like notes in your music, George, fast, unpredictable, they can't pin it down. Antheil stops playing. His mind flashes to Paris in the 1920s, to Ballet Mechanic, his mad symphony for synchronized player pianos, where 16 machines hammered out rhythms in perfect, impossibly unison. Punched paper rolls dictated every note, every shift, every leap. The synchronization was everything. One slip, and chaos. He leans forward. The transmitter and the receiver, they have to dance together. Exactly together, or the signal vanishes. The idea crystallizes in that quiet room, a secret communication system. The torpedo and its guiding ship would share identical rolls of perforated paper, like player piano strips. Motors would spin them at the same speed. Each hole would trigger a switch to a new frequency hopping across 88 possibly bands. The keys of a piano, naturally in a seemingly random sequence, known only to both ends. To any eavesdropper or jammer, the signal would sound like fleeting bursts of static, impossible to lock onto or disrupt. The torpedo would hear only clear commands. The enemy would hear nothing useful. They work through the night. Hedy sketches the mechanical linkages, the tuning circuits. George refines the synchronization logic, drawing from his years wrestling with mechanical pianos. By dawn, the concept is solid enough to submit to the National Inventors Council, a wartime brain trust hungry for ingenuity. They connect with Samuel Stuart McEwen, a Caltech professor who translates their Hollywood brainstorm into rigorous electrical engineering. The patent application is filed in June 1941. On August 11, 1942, U.S. Patent No. 2,292,387 is granted to Hedy Lamarr, Marquis and George Antheil. But the Navy, they listen politely. Then they laugh. A player piano and a torpedo. One officer reportedly snorts. Too bulky, too fragile, too eccentric. The brass suggests Hedy sell war bonds. Instead, her beauty and fame are weapons enough, they say. The inventors donate the patent anyway. Free to the government, it gathers dust in classified files. Back on the Atlantic, June 10, 1943, the jamming on the O'Bannon grows unbearable. Harlan Thompson's headset fills with that demonic howl again. He doesn't know the name Hedy Lamarr. He doesn't know a silver screen star has already solved his nightmare on paper. But the ether is full of secrets, and the war is about to force a reckoning. As the U-boat's shadow closes, a desperate message finally breaks through, not on one frequency, but because someone, somewhere, is listening for the impossible. The breakthrough in the ether, June 10th, 1943. 03. For 7 hours. The North Atlantic is a black, heaving beast. Aboard the USS O'Bannon, the red battle lamps pulse like heartbeats as the ship heels hard to starboard. Depth charges rumble in the racks. The crew braces against the next explosion. In the radio shack, Harlan Thompson's world has shrunk to the glowing dial, the headset clamped so tight his ears ache, and the relentless wall of German jamming that refuses to yield. He's tried everything. narrowband filters, auxiliary antennas, even shouting into the mic on emergency frequencies. Nothing. The U-boat U-118, confirmed by the Aztec ping, has surfaced briefly. Arrogant, broadcasting its own coded triumph to Berlin. Harlan catches fragments through the noise. Convoy Zerst. Arte. Schiff. 5 ships. Tailwards. But he knows what 5 ships means: hundreds of men, thousands of tons of steel and hope, gone. Then, something shifts. A new signal cuts through, not loud, not clean, but present. It flickers across the band like a moth beating against glass. 92.7 megahertz for a heartbeat, then 89.1, then 94.4, then gone again. Harlan freezes. He's never heard anything like it. The tone is steady, almost musical. A rapid series of short bursts that refuse to linger anywhere long enough for the German jammers to lock. The interference howls in protest, sweeping across the spectrum. But the new signal dances ahead, untouchable. Sparks. What the hell is that? Captain Markham's voice crackles over the intercom.
I don't know, sir.
Hopping. Fast. Like it's mocking them. Harlan tunes in. Fingers. Trembling. The message is short, encrypted, but unmistakable. Air support vectoring. In PBY. Catalina's from Iceland. ETA. 12 minutes. The coordinates are clean. The frequency changes every 2 seconds. No single band holds the signal longer than a breath. He doesn't know it yet. But this is the first operational test of what the Navy has quietly begun calling spread spectrum modulation, pulled from the dusty patent files after 2 years of skepticism. Engineers at the Naval Research Laboratory, desperate for any edge against the Wolfpacks, had miniaturized the concept. No player piano rolls. This time vacuum tube, oscillators, quartz crystals, and a rotating commutator switch cycling through 64 narrow bands. In a pseudorandom pattern, the transmitter and receiver share the exact same hopping sequence, synchronized by atomic clock, precision borrowed from the latest chronometers. To the enemy, it's noise. To the Allies, it's clarity. The Germans are furious. Their direction-finding stations report a signal that appears and vanishes, splintering into meaningless fragments across the dial. Their jammers sweep uselessly, chasing ghosts. U-118. Ese commander. Capit. Nutante Friedrich Haas curses in the conning tower as his hydrophones pick up the growing drone of approaching aircraft. He orders a crash dive, but the moment is lost. 12 minutes later, the Catalinas arrive low and fast. Depth charges bloom in white geysers across the convoy's wake. Sonar pings fade. U-118 does not resurface. Harlan slumps in his chair, headset still on, listening to the sudden quiet. The ether feels different, now lighter, almost playful. He doesn't understand the mechanics, doesn't know the name Hedy Lamarr is stamped on the blueprint that saved them. All he knows is that the static lost tonight. Back in Washington, a classified memo circulates the same week. Preliminary field trials of frequency-hopping radio guidance and communications demonstrate near-total immunity to known Axis jamming techniques. Recommend accelerated production for Atlantic convoy escorts and Pacific torpedo guidance systems. The brass who once laughed at the player piano torpedo out of silo now. But the real story is only beginning to unfold, because the same principle that saved the Obanon is about to leap from the sea into the sky and from there, into the future. From battlefield whisper to global revolution, November 1944. A windswept airfield on Tinian Island, Mariana Chain, the Pacific sun beats down mercilessly on the tarmac, where a silver B-29 superfortress named Dynamite idles, engines coughing to life. Inside the radio compartment, Lieutenant Jack Riley straps in, his new AR-5 transceiver humming softly. No more single-frequency prayers. This bird carries the upgraded spread spectrum suite codenamed Santa Boy for public ears, but the crews just call it the Dancer. It hops across 88 channels in a pattern no Japanese jammer can follow. You can almost taste the salt air and aviation fuel as Riley flips the switch. Tonight, they're guiding a fleet of PT boats toward a Japanese supply convoy off Lady Gulf. The old way, one jammed frequency and the torpedoes veer off into the dark. Tonight, the signal leaps 72.3 MHz, 78.9, 81.2 never lingering. Japanese radio operators on destroyers scramble, their Yamato-class jammers sweeping in vain. The PT boats hear every correction, crystal clear. Torpedoes streak home. 3 enemy transports erupt in orange fireballs under a moonlit sky. Riley grins into his mic. Scratch 3, good hunting. Word spreads like wildfire through the theaters of war. In Europe, by early 1945, frequency-hopping radios equipped the 101st Airborne during the siege of Bast. German artillery spotters tried to drown out pleas for supplies, but the signals danced through the snow-choked Ardennes. Parachutes bloom over the frozen town food ammo, hope delivered because the airwaves stayed open. On the Eastern Front, Soviet Lend-Lease sets adapted with the tech helped on the tie to Kursk's remnants, leaving Wehrmacht commanders screaming about ghost transmissions. Back home, the secret finally leaks to those who need to know. Hedy Lamarr, now filming The Strange Woman on a foggy MGM backlot, receives a quiet visit from a Navy captain. No fanfare, just a folder stamped classified in a simple ma'am. Your patent just saved thousands of lives. Thank you. She smiles that famous, enigmatic smile and Esakis. Only... Did it work on the torpedoes? He nods. She turns back to her script, eyes glistening. George Antheil gets a similar letter. He frames it next to a score of ballet mechanic. The war ends in August 1945, but the dancer refuses to stop. The Navy classifies the full details until 1957, then quietly rolls the technology into new systems. Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. U.S. blockade ships coordinate flawlessly, while Soviet jammers flail. Vietnam, 1960s. Helicopter gunships chatter secure orders over the jungle canopy. Desert Storm, 1991. GPS-guided munitions. Or their jam-resistant precision, to the same hopping principle layered into modern waveforms, and then everyday life. In the 1980s, engineers at Telephonics and others revisit patent 2,292,387 as it finally enters the public domain. They shrink it, digitize it, perfect it. By 1997, the IEEE honors Hedy with a Pioneer Award. She accepts via satellite from her Florida home. Voice soft. I just thought it was a good idea. That good idea becomes the backbone of Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. CDMA cell networks billions of devices worldwide, hopping frequencies every second so your call doesn't drop. Your music streams uninterrupted. Your GPS never loses you in the rain. Today, when your phone seamlessly switches towers without a hiccup, or your wireless earbuds shrug off microwave interference, that's Hedy's dance still playing, from a Hollywood living room to the silence of victory in the Atlantic. From player piano rolls to the pocket supercomputer in your hand. Harlan Thompson survived the war, retired to Maine, and never learned the actress's name until a 1990s documentary. He watched, tears in his eyes, as Hedy recounted the night she sketched salvation on a napkin. All because a beautiful woman hated waste, he whispered to his grandson. She hated seeing good torpedoes miss. And somewhere, in the endless hum of the modern spectrum, the signals still dance. Untouchable, elegant, eternal. The Quiet Legacy and the Digital Dawn, May 8th, 1945. V-Day. The streets of London erupt in cheers. Confetti raining from office windows like slow snow. In a small, windowless room at the Naval Research Laboratory in Anacostia, Washington, D.C., a handful of engineers raise paper cups of lukewarm coffee. No parades for them. No headlines. Just a single line typed on a classified after-action summary. Frequency hopping spread spectrum communications contributed decisively to the security of Atlantic. Convoys and Pacific SC strike coordination. Estimated lives saved when a Convoy Hedy Lamarr is in New York that day, filming scenes for The Strange Woman. Between takes, she listens to the radio coverage of the surrender in Europe. She smiles politely at the director's congratulations. But her thoughts drift elsewhere, to the patent she and George Antheil gave away for free. To the night spent sketching circuits while the rest of Hollywood slept. No one on set knows. The invention remains buried under layers of top-secret stamps. The war ends, but the technology does not sleep. By 1957, the U.S. military begins deploying more advanced versions during the early Cold War. The first operational spread-spectrum radios appear in nuclear command links systems that must survive Soviet jamming in the event of all-out war. The old player piano idea is long gone. Transistors replace vacuum tubes. Digital pseudorandom number generators replace mechanical The principle remains the same. Make the signal so elusive, so widespread across the spectrum, that no jammer can blot it out without blanketing the entire radio bandend. That would deafen the jammer's own forces. Then comes the quiet revolution. No one saw coming. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, engineers at Qualcomm, a tiny startup in San Diego, look at the old military patents now, long expired, and see something bigger than torpedoes or battlefield radios. They see mobile phones. Cellular networks are fragile. Interference from neighboring cells, buildings, even passing cars can drop calls. But what if the signal didn't stay put? What if every phone and every base station danced across dozens, then hundreds of channels in a coordinated, unpredictable pattern? CDMA code division, multiple accesses born. It is frequency hopping. Spread spectrum is direct. Descendant refined into a digital symphony. Thousands of users share the same wide band of spectrum simultaneously. Each conversation separated only by a unique code. To an eavesdropper or jammer, it's indistinguishable from background noise. To the network, it's crystal clear. By the 1990s, CDMA becomes the backbone of the second-generation digital cellular revolution. Billions of phones, trillions of calls, all tracing their lineage back to a Hollywood living room in 1940. Hedy Lamarr, now in her 70s, lives quietly in Florida. The world still knows her as a screen siren, not an inventor. In 1997, the Electronic Frontier Foundation awards her and George Antheil posthumously the Pioneer Award for their contribution to modern communications. She is too ill to attend the ceremony in San Francisco. A friend accepts on her behalf. The citation reads, in part, they saw the future of wireless when most engineers saw only the present. June 19, 2000. Lamarr dies at age 85. Obituaries mention her films, her beauty, occasionally the invention in passing. But the real monument is invisible, humming all around us. Every time a smartphone switches cell towers seamlessly in a crowded city, every time GPS guides a drone through contested airspace, every time Wi-Fi cuts through interference in a coffee shop, every encrypted Bluetooth earbud conversation, frequency hopping, spread spectrum, is there still dancing, still untouchable. From a starlit sketchpad to the wireless world we live in today, the signals still dance. And because they do, the victory's silent, invisible. Countless go on.